Welcome to the World of Faith, one of 7 worlds and 7 World Productions, a subsidiary of Angelgram Music. My name is Gino, and I am the sole owner of Angelgram Music and executive director of 7 World Productions. Continuing our series In Search of Faith, here is our next sequence. After Baha'i, we come to Buddhism. Hope you enjoy. Faith in Buddhism. In Buddhism, faith refers to a serene commitment to the practice of the Buddha's teaching and trust in enlightened or highly developed beings, such as Buddhas, aiming to become a Buddha. Buddhists usually recognize multiple objects of faith, but many are especially devoted to one in particular, such as one particular Buddha. Faith may not only be devotion to a person, but exists in relation to Buddhist concepts like the efficacy of karma and the possibility of enlightenment. Faith in early Buddhism focused on the triple gem, that is, the Buddha, his teaching, and finally the community of spiritually developed followers, or the monastic community seeking enlightenment. A faithful devotee was called an apashaka, a status to which no formal initiation was required. Early Buddhism valued personal verification of spiritual truth highest in attaining such truth, and considered sacred scriptures, reason, or faith in a teacher less valuable sources of authority. As important as faith was, it was merely a first step on the path to wisdom and enlightenment, and was made obsolete or redefined at the final stage of that path. Early Buddhism did not morally condemn peaceful offerings to deities. Throughout the history of Buddhism, the worship of deities, often from pre-Buddhist and animist origins, was appropriated or transformed into Buddhist practices and beliefs. As part of this process, such deities were explained as subordinate to the Triple Gem, which still kept a central role. In the later stratum of Buddhist history, especially in Mahayana Buddhism, faith was given a much more important role. Mahayana introduced devotion to Buddhas residing in Pure Lands, and with the rise of devotion to the Buddha in Pure Land Buddhism, faith gained a central role in Buddhist practice. The Japanese form of Pure Land Buddhism, under the teachers Honen and Shinran, believed that only entrusting faith toward the Amitabha Buddha was a fruitful form of practice, as it dismissed celibacy, meditation, and other Buddhist practices as no longer effective, or as contradicting the virtue of faith. Pure Land Buddhists define faith as a state similar to enlightenment, with a sense of self-negation and humility. Mahayana sutras, such as the Lotus Sutra, became objects of worship, and the recitation and copying of these sutras were believed to create great merit. The impact of faith in Buddhist religiosity became pivotal in millenarial movements in several Buddhist countries, which sometimes resulted in the destruction of royal dynasties and other important political changes. Thus, the role of faith increased throughout Buddhist history. However, from the 19th century onward, in countries like Sri Lanka and Japan, and also in the West, Buddhist modernism has downplayed and criticized the role of faith in Buddhism. Faith in Buddhism still has a role in modern Asia and the West, but is understood and defined differently from traditional interpretations, with modern values and eclecticism becoming more important. The Dalit Buddhist community, specifically the Navayana movement, has interpreted Buddhist concepts in the light of the political situation of the Dalits, in which there is tension between modernist rationalism and local devotion. Faith is defined as serene trust that the practice of the Buddha's teaching will bring fruit. It is trust and surrender to enlightened or highly developed beings such as Buddhas, or even certain highly respected monks or lamas, sometimes seen as living Buddhas. Buddhists usually recognize multiple objects of faith, but many are especially devoted to one particular object of faith, such as one particular Buddha. Buddhism has, however, never been organized around one central authority, neither as a person or a scripture. Scriptures have usually acted as guidance, and consensus about practices has come about through debate and discussion. Faith is usually, again, related to the triple gem, that is, the Buddha, his teaching, and the community. Thus, faith may often have certain individuals as its object, but is different from devotion to other Indian religions, in that it is connected with impersonal objects such as the working of karma and the efficacy of merit transfer. It is seen to focus on or lead to a right view or understanding of the main aspects of the Buddha's teaching, such as the working of karma, merit, and rebirth. Regarding the triple gem, faith focuses on and rejoices in the characteristics of the Buddha, the teachings, and the community. With regard to the working of karma, faith refers to a conviction that deeds have effects, good deeds having positive effects, and wrong deeds negative. Thus, faith gives guidance in leading a life of charity, morality, and religious qualities. Faith also covers ideas such as the nature of existence, its impermanence and conditioned nature, and finally, the Buddha's enlightenment or nirvana and the path of practice leading up to nirvana. Faith entails a belief that there are people who have attained nirvana and are able to teach it. Modern Buddhism. In Buddhism, Buddhas and other enlightened beings are the main focus of honor, comparable to that of gods in other religions. Although Buddhism does recognize the existence of deities, Buddhas and other enlightened beings are considered to be different in that they are seen as outside of the cycle of existence. This does not mean that worship of deities did not exist in Buddhism. However, worship of deities has often been considered a form of superstition or a form of skillful means to guide the unenlightened to a better life, and not much more than that. In the history of the diffusion of Buddhism, the relation between Buddhism and local deities was an important aspect of success, but Buddhists have often denied this because of local movements for orthodoxy. Furthermore, scholars have paid little interest to the role of local deities, since it is not covered by any of the standard academic disciplines studying Buddhism, such as Buddhist studies or anthropology. Nevertheless, deities had a role in Buddhist cosmology from early onward. Buddhist traditions saw them, however, as subordinate to the Buddha and related many stories of them embracing the Buddhist teaching and even becoming protectors of it. When Buddhist teachers adopted existing cosmologies but placed the Buddha on top of these systems, a Buddhist cosmology arose. Part of this process was depicting these deities as violent and disorganized, as opposed to Buddhism and its practitioners. This was not far from the truth, as Buddhist missionaries often came from more ordered and less violent cultures. In this way, snake-like deities, bird-like deities, and violent spirits, which previously were the focus of pre-Buddhist cults, became guardians of the Buddhist teaching. This process of adopting deities as part of Buddhism often occurred when Buddhist devotees or monks did not fully renounce their former devotions when embracing Buddhism. In the early Pali scriptures, as well as in some customs in traditional Buddhist societies, traces can still be found of the period that Buddhism competed with this Naga worship and assimilated some of its features. In some Buddhist countries like Japan, a perspective arose of the human world as a microcosm of the macrocosmic realms of the Buddhas. This allowed for an increased tolerance of local traditions and folk religion, which was seen as connected with this macrocosmos and thus part of Buddhism. All of these developments led Buddhism to include many deities into its system of faith, but each deity was given its place and role subordinate to the Buddha. Buddhism did not only appropriate deities into the religion, but also adapted its own teachings. According to religious studies scholar Donald Swirer, relic worship and hagiographies of Buddhist masters were ways for Buddhism to adapt to pre-Buddhist deities. By fitting these into the Buddhist thought system, East Asian Buddhist movements like the Chinese White Lotus were transformations of such beliefs. Such transformation of pre-Buddhist beliefs also explains the popularity of movements like Japanese Pure Land Buddhism under Honen and Shinran, even though in their teachings they opposed. Although in pre-modern times some schools of Buddhism de-emphasized faith in Buddhist practice, the role of faith really was only criticized widely in modern times. During the 18th century Enlightenment, Western intellectuals came to see religion as culturally relative as opposed to the single truth of reason. By the end of the 19th century, this view on religion had informed how the West responded to Buddhism. Western writers such as Edwin Arnold began to present Buddhism as the answer to the contradiction between science and religion, as a rational religion devoid of culture. As Western science and rationalism spread to Asia, intellectuals in Asian countries such as in Sri Lanka developed similar ideas. Because of the threat of colonial powers and Christianity and the rise of an urban middle class at the end of the 19th century, Sri Lankan Buddhism started to change, described by present-day scholars as Buddhist modernism or Protestant Buddhism. Westerners and British-educated Sri Lankans advocated Buddhism as a rational philosophy, free from blind faith and idolatry, congruent with science and modern ideas. They saw traditional practices such as relic worship and other devotional routines as corruptions of an ideal, rational form of Buddhism, while assimilating Victorian and other modern values and designating them as traditional Buddhists, often without awareness of their roots. In Japan, from the Meiji period onward, the Japanese heavily attacked Buddhism as a foreign and superstitious belief system. In response to this, Buddhist schools, such as Zen, developed a movement called New Buddhism, emphasizing rationalism, modernism, and warrior ideals. Still, in Japanese Buddhism in the 20th century, a critical response to traditional Buddhism arose, led by the two academics Hakamaya Noriaki and Matsumoto Shiro, called Critical Buddhism. Their school of thought has criticized Chinese and Japanese Buddhist ideas for undermining critical thinking, promoting blind faith and laxity to improve society. East Asian Studies scholar Peter Gregory comments, however, that the attempt of critical Buddhists at finding a pure, unadulterated Buddhism, ironically, reeks with the very same essentialism it criticizes. Other scholars have made similar arguments. Critical Buddhism criticizes blind faith and a belief in the Buddha nature, but it does reserve a place for faith. Buddhist faith, states Noriaki, is the uncompromising critical capacity to distinguish between true and false Buddhism, and to commit to what is true Buddhism. Noriaki contrasts such true faith with the Japanese ideal of harmony, which he believes goes hand in hand with uncritical acceptance of non-Buddhist ideals, including violence. Despite these widespread modernist trends in Asia, scholars have also observed the decline of rationalism and resurfacing of pre-modern religious teachings and practices. From the 1980s onward, they observed that in Sri Lankan Buddhism, devotional religiosity, magical practices, honoring deities as well as moral ambiguity had become more widespread, as the effects of Protestant Buddhism were becoming weaker. With the spread of Buddhism to the West in the 20th century, devotional practices still played an important role among Asian ethnic communities, though much less so in Western convert communities. The influence of Buddhist modernism could also be felt in the West, where lay-led organizations often offered meditation courses without much emphasis on devotion. Writers like D.T. Suzuki described meditation as a transcultural and non-religious practice which greatly appealed to Westerners. Thus, in Western secular Buddhism, meditation was more emphasized than in traditional Buddhist communities, and faith or devotion less. Just like in modern Asia, the rational and intellectual aspects of Buddhism were mostly emphasized in the West, as Buddhism was often favorably compared with Christianity. The author and Buddhist teacher Stephen Batchelor has endeavored to advocate a form of Buddhism which he believes to be original, ancient Buddhism, as it was before it became institutionalized as a religion. In contrast to these typical modernist trends, it has also been observed that some Western Buddhist communities show great commitment to their practice and belief, and for that reason are more traditional religious than most forms of New Age spirituality. Furthermore, several Buddhist teachers have spoken out against interpretations of Buddhism that do away with all faith and devotion, including translator and monastic Bhikkhu Bodhi. Bodhi argues that many Westerners have misunderstood, as Buddhism teaches that faith and personal verification should go hand in hand, and faith should not be discarded. The latter part of the 20th century has seen a unique situation arising with regard to Buddhism in the West. For the first time since Buddhism left India, many Buddhist traditions are able to communicate in the same language. This has led to an increased eclecticism between the different traditions. Furthermore, with the increase of scientific research in meditation methods, prominent Buddhist authors are pointing to scientific evidence to verify whether Buddhist practice is really effective or not, rather than referring to scriptural or monastic authority. Next time, on In Search of Faith, we'll be dealing with the next religious practice after Buddhism in our alphabetically chronicized list, Christianity, and we'll probably devote more than one episode to Christianity. Until then, go and be inspired. If you like this episode, click like and leave comments so that we can discuss this further. Also, if you'd like, please subscribe, and that way you'll receive email notifications of future episodes in this world and other worlds. Try out our other worlds, the wonderful world of art, the world of books, the world of food, the world of family, the world of games, and the world of music. Go and be inspired.